Most people uncork a bottle of wine without ever wondering how it came to be. To many, it's simply a drink, something poured to celebrate, to relax, or to accompany a meal. But behind every glass of wine lies a journey shaped by time, weather, craftsmanship, and thousands of tiny decisions made long before the bottle reaches the table. Before a single drop fills a glass, its story begins in a vineyard touched by wind, sunlight, and soil. Months of care go into each cluster of grapes, and entire harvests can succeed or fail depending on a single week of weather. A bottle of wine may seem simple, yet it carries the imprint of an entire season. And unlike many foods or beverages created in minutes or hours, wine demands patience. It is grown, transformed, aged, refined, and sometimes left untouched for years until it becomes what the winemaker believes it should be. Today, we step inside that world, one where agriculture meets chemistry, where tradition meets technology, and where a year of nature is captured inside a single bottle. This is the journey of how wine is truly made. Wine is more than a beverage. It's a product shaped by geography, history, and culture, a drink that tells the story of the place it comes from. Across the world, entire regions are defined by their vineyards, and entire economies depend on the annual harvest of grapes. From France and Italy to California and Chile, wine is a global industry worth billions of dollars. But what makes wine truly fascinating is its complexity. Two bottles made from the same grape variety can taste completely different depending on the soil, the climate, the way the vines were pruned, and the decisions made by the winemaker. No other common drink carries this level of variability and personality. Wine is also deeply connected to tradition. Some wineries rely on techniques passed down for generations, while others use advanced technology to achieve perfect consistency. It is one of the few products where old-world craftsmanship and modern science work side by side. And despite all this complexity, wine remains something enjoyed casually around the world, often without anyone realizing the incredible amount of work that goes into every bottle. To understand wine is to understand a craft shaped by both nature and human hands. Long before wine becomes liquid in a bottle, it begins as sunlight stored inside a grape. And the place that shapes this transformation more than anywhere else is the vineyard, a landscape where soil, climate, and careful human attention determine the future character of every wine. Grapevines demand specific conditions. They thrive in well-drained soil, steady sunlight, and climates that shift gently between warm days and cool nights. These variations influence the balance between sweetness and acidity, the foundation of every wine's flavor. Even the slope of the land matters. Hillsides with good drainage often produce grapes of higher quality. Farmers monitor their vines throughout the year. They prune branches to control growth, remove excess leaves to manage sunlight exposure, and protect the grapes from pests and disease. Every small decision affects the final harvest. Too much rain dilutes flavor. Too little moisture stresses the vines. A warm season may produce bold, powerful wines, while a cooler year leads to lighter, more delicate profiles. By late summer or early autumn, the grapes begin to reach maturity. Their skins darken, their sugars rise, and their acids soften. This moment marks the start of the next critical stage, the harvest. As the grapes reach the perfect balance of sweetness and acidity, the vineyard shifts into its most critical moment of the entire year, the harvest. Everything depends on timing. Harvest too early, and the wine becomes sharp and acidic. Harvest too late, and the grapes grow overly sweet, losing the structure needed for aging. Winemakers taste and test daily, waiting for the exact moment when the fruit reaches ideal ripeness. Grapes can be picked by hand or machine. Hand picking is slow but precise. Workers select only the healthiest clusters, avoiding damaged fruit. Machine harvesting is faster and ideal for large vineyards, shaking ripe grapes from the vines in a matter of hours. Both methods aim for the same goal, transporting the fruit quickly before oxidation or fermentation can begin on its own. Once delivered to the winery, the next step is destemming and crushing. Modern machines gently remove the stems to prevent bitterness, then lightly crack the grapes to release their juice, pulp, and skins. This mixture, called must, becomes the foundation of wine. For white wines, the juice is typically separated from the skins immediately. For red wines, the skins stay, carrying color, tannins, and complexity into the fermentation to come. Once the grapes have been crushed and prepared, the transformation truly begins. Fermentation is the stage where grape juice becomes alcohol, a natural process driven by yeast. These tiny organisms feed on the sugar inside the juice, converting it into ethanol and carbon dioxide. It's simple in concept, yet incredibly delicate in practice. Winemakers can rely on wild, naturally occurring yeast, or introduce a selected strain to control flavor and consistency. The choice influences everything: aroma, texture, and even how the wine ages over time. Temperature is one of the most critical factors. For white wines, cooler fermentation, often between 10 degrees and 15 degrees, preserves fresh, fruity aromas. For red wines, warmer fermentation, around 20 degrees to 30 degrees, extracts more color, tannins, and depth from the skins. Throughout the process, the must is regularly monitored. Red wine ferments with its skins, forming a cap that floats to the top. Winemakers push this cap down or pump juice over it to extract color and flavor evenly. White wine, on the other hand, ferments without skins, creating a cleaner, brighter profile. After days or even weeks, the energetic bubbling begins to slow. Sugar levels drop, alcohol rises, and slowly the juice becomes wine, young, raw, and ready for its next stage. After fermentation, the young wine is full of potential, but still rough, sharp, and undeveloped. To become something refined, it must age. Aging is where time, material, and patience reshape the wine's character, smoothing its edges and adding depth. Many wineries choose to age their wine in oak barrels. Oak adds subtle flavors: vanilla, caramel, spice, even a gentle smokiness depending on the barrel's toast level. Barrels also allow small amounts of oxygen to pass through, softening tannins and creating a rounder, more complex structure. French oak brings elegance and fine texture. American oak adds bolder notes and stronger aromas. Other wines age in stainless steel tanks. These tanks don't add flavor. Instead, they preserve freshness. Wines aged this way stay bright, crisp, and clean, ideal for varieties that emphasize fruit and acidity. Stainless steel also offers precise temperature control, ensuring consistency. The length of aging varies widely. Some wines rest only a few months. Others sleep for years, slowly changing as they absorb oxygen, settle, and mature. During this time, winemakers taste the wine repeatedly, deciding when it has reached its peak. Aging isn't simply waiting, it's guiding the wine toward its best expression. When aging is complete, the wine moves into a stage that focuses on refinement, clarification. Even the most carefully fermented wine contains tiny particles, bits of grape skin, yeast cells, proteins, and natural sediments. These don't affect the flavor, but they make the wine appear cloudy, and they can cause instability over time. Clarification ensures the wine becomes clear, stable, and ready for bottling. The process begins with racking, gently transferring the wine from one vessel to another, leaving the heavier sediments behind. This simple movement removes a large portion of unwanted materials without disturbing the wine. Next, winemakers may use fining agents, natural substances that bind to remaining particles. Clay, proteins, or plant-based materials attract microscopic solids, pulling them together so they can sink and be removed. The wine becomes more transparent and smoother in texture. Finally comes filtration. Depending on the style, the wine may pass through fine membranes that catch the last traces of haze or yeast. Not all winemakers filter, but for many, it's a reliable way to ensure clarity and stability. By the time clarification is complete, the wine looks polished and clean, visually ready for the bottle, and one step closer to the glass. Before the wine is ready for bottling, many wineries take one additional and deeply creative step: blending. While some wines come from a single grape variety and a single tank, many of the world's most respected wines are combinations of different batches, different barrels, or even different grape varieties. Blending is where winemaking becomes as much art as science. The winemaker samples various components: wine aged in new oak, wine aged in neutral oak, wine aged in stainless steel, and wine from different vineyard blocks or grape varieties. Each sample carries its own fingerprint. One may be bold but simple. Another may be aromatic but light. Another may have strong tannins but lack fruit. By combining them in precise proportions, the winemaker builds balance, structure, aroma, acidity, texture, and complexity all working together. Even a 10-fund adjustment can change the entire profile of a blend. Blending sessions can take hours, sometimes days, as winemakers taste, compare, and refine again and again until the final composition feels complete. Once the blend is chosen, the wines are combined into a single, unified batch. This merged wine now represents the final vision, ready for bottling, and ready to become something cohesive and expressive. Once the wine has been blended and clarified, it's finally ready for one of the most precise and tightly controlled stages of the entire production line: bottling. This is the moment where months, sometimes years, of work are sealed into glass. Before any bottling begins, the equipment is sterilized. The bottles are washed, dried, and inspected under bright lights to ensure there are no cracks, chips, or microscopic debris. Even the slightest imperfection can compromise the wine's stability. The wine flows through stainless steel pipes into high-speed bottling machines. Lines of empty bottles move along conveyor belts, each one filled with exact measurements of wine. The level must be perfect. Too high, and pressure may build. Too low, and oxygen exposure increases. Next comes the closure. Traditional wines use natural cork, which allows small amounts of air to enter over time, helping certain wines age gracefully. Others use synthetic corks or screw caps, which provide airtight seals and long-term freshness. After sealing, the bottles move to labeling and lot coding. Each label identifies the vintage, grape variety, region, and producer, the wine's identity. Finally, the bottles are boxed, palletized, and stored. Some are shipped immediately, others continue aging quietly in the bottle. The wine's physical form is now complete. Even after the wine is sealed inside the bottle, its journey isn't finished. For many wines, this stage, bottle aging, is where the final layers of character slowly develop. Time becomes an ingredient, shaping the wine from within. Inside a sealed bottle, the environment is stable and controlled. There is very little oxygen, but just enough remains trapped to trigger gentle, long-term reactions. Tannins soften, aromas blend together, and flavors that once felt sharp begin to merge into something smoother and more integrated. Red wines may develop notes of dried fruit, leather, or earthiness. White wines can become rounder, gaining honeyed or nutty tones. Not every wine is meant to age, but those designed for it reward patience with increased complexity. Temperature matters too. Cool, consistent cellars prevent the wine from aging too quickly. Light is also avoided, since UV exposure can damage delicate compounds. Some wines age for only a few months before release. Others rest for years, even decades, quietly evolving inside the glass. By the end of this stage, the wine is no longer just a beverage. It becomes a preserved moment in time, a memory of the season it was grown, waiting to be opened and experienced. Even with all the science and craftsmanship behind wine, some of its most fascinating details come from simple facts that many people never hear about. For example, a single grapevine produces only a few bottles of wine per year, usually somewhere between 3 and 5. That means each bottle represents the yield of an entire plant. And to create just one standard bottle, winemakers need roughly 600 to 700 individual grapes. Another surprising detail: wine gets its color entirely from the grape skins. The juice inside red and white grapes is almost the same color. Red wine becomes red only because the skins stay in contact during fermentation. The shape of the wine bottle also has history behind it. The deep indent at the bottom, called the punt, originally helped strengthen old glass bottles and allowed sediment to settle more evenly. And perhaps most interesting of all, wine legs. The streaks that form on the inside of a glass do not indicate quality. They're simply caused by alcohol evaporation and surface tension. These small truths reveal how rich and surprising the world of wine really is, far beyond what we see in a single bottle. From the quiet vineyards where grapes first catch the morning sun to the cool cellars where bottles rest in silence, the journey of wine is a long and patient transformation. Every step, planting, pruning, harvesting, fermenting, aging, carries the imprint of nature and the hand of the winemaker. What begins as simple fruit slowly becomes something layered, expressive, and alive with history. Wine is unique among everyday products. It is shaped not in hours, but in seasons. It reflects the soil it grew in, the weather of the year it was made, and the countless decisions made by the people who watched over it. No two vintages are ever perfectly alike, and that is part of the magic. By the time a bottle reaches the table, it represents a full year of work, guided by tradition, science, and intuition. It carries the memory of the vineyard, the calm of the cellars, and the craftsmanship of everyone involved in its creation. So the next time you open a bottle, pause for a moment. Inside that glass is more than a drink. It is a story of sun, soil, and time, captured and preserved for you to experience.